There is no crisis in Zimbabwe. South Africa's leader, Thabo Mbeki, has insisted, even though the results of the presidential elections still haven't been declared 2 weeks after the vote. Mr. Mbeki, who's in the region for a summit of African leaders to discuss ways of ending the impasse, said people just needed to be more patient. Earlier, he stopped in Harare for talks with Zimbabwe's president, Robert Mugabe, who's not attending the summit. Jane Dodge reports.
The hands said it all. South Africa's president side by side with Robert Mugabe. Gordon Brown may be talking tough, but according to Thabo Mbeki, there is no crisis. Today, he even backed the possibility of a rerun of the presidential election, despite warnings from the opposition that they won't take part.
Everybody is waiting for the Zimbabwe Electoral Commission to announce all the results that are standing. And if nobody wins a clear majority, in terms of presidential elections, the law provides that there should be a second round.
But not everybody is willing to play the waiting game. Militants sacked residents in this town, Centenary, north of Harare, and set fire to their homes because they dared to vote for the opposition. 2 weeks after the election, Gordon Brown is demanding the results are published now.
Any intimidation, any violence is completely unacceptable. And I think the whole eyes of the international community are now upon Zimbabwe, and we're looking for action, the publication of results, free and fair elections being proven to have happened. If there are abuses, that these abuses are exposed.
Brown is the world, sure. The world is losing patience. But I know Brown is a little tiny dot on this world.
While the political standoff continues, life gets even tougher for the people of Zimbabwe. Water and food shortages, soaring prices, and a rate of inflation defies belief. Then there's the intimidation. Political rallies have now been banned, yet people are still willing to speak out.
If we don't have change in Zimbabwe, I would like to tell you, we are going to suffer.
Keen to avoid widespread violence in Zimbabwe, African leaders are meeting in Lusaka this evening. Robert Mugabe, though, noticeable by his absence, citing more pressing business at home. The would-be future president, Morgan Tsvangirai, hoping the emergency SADC will add to the pressure for change.
Our hope is that they will be able to use their political influence on President Mugabe to concede defeat. Because that election was won by MDC.
SADC has already endorsed these elections as free and fair, even though there's absolutely no evidence to warrant that. I think it's very unlikely that SADC is going to summon the political will to put the pressure that's required on Mugabe to ensure that he steps down.
If leaders in the region do join together to criticise Mr Mugabe, it'll be unprecedented. If they don't, Robert Mugabe will continue to tighten his grip. The end game may be sometime yet.
There is no crisis in Zimbabwe. South Africa.
In Zimbabwe, white farmers today claimed their properties had been invaded by government-organised gangs, accompanied by state television cameras. Reports suggest almost 30 farms have been occupied by members of the War Veterans Organisation. The development came as the Zimbabwean High Court once again postponed a decision on whether it would order the publication of last week's presidential election results. Our international editor Lindsay Hilson reports.
Here we go again. The lunchtime news in Zimbabwe today showed President Mugabe's supporters moving onto land owned by white farmers.
Reports reaching these organs are that
there are only a few hundred left in the country, and once more they've become scapegoats.
What's the problem to them?
No, we don't have any problem. We just come here to alert you. We came here to occupy this place.
You occupy this place?
Yes. From now onwards, this is ours.
Which this whole farm?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
President Mugabe, speaking at a funeral yesterday, said Zimbabweans must safeguard their land from former colonizers, a sign he's fighting back after probable election defeat. According to the Zimbabwe Commercial Farmers Union, about 27 farms have been invaded in Masvingo, Centenary, Marandera, Shamva and Beatrice.
It's happening exactly the same method as what happened in 2000. Nothing's changed. It's definitely being driven by civil servants and a few war veterans, and the youth are being used to make up the numbers. There have been claims that these invasions have been spontaneous, but it's funny to see that spontaneous invasions actually go along with TV crews.
8 years ago, President Mugabe's supporters invaded most of the 4,500 commercial farms owned by whites. They called themselves veterans of the War for Liberation, the struggle for freedom from white rule back in the 1970s. But most were far too young ever to have fought. They were President Mugabe's vanguard. He said the opposition MDC was stooges of the white man. And it seems he's trying to rekindle that resentment in the hope of regaining popularity before a possible runoff in the presidential. In Harare today, a High Court judge said he'd rule tomorrow on the opposition demand for the results of the presidential election to be published 9 days after the vote.
The matter has not yet been determined. Okay. Judgment will be delivered in respect of certain issues tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock.
Today, the Prime Minister, meeting the Australian leader, called for the Zimbabwe presidential election results to be announced immediately. Said any runoff should involve international monitors. Over the weekend, he held talks with the South African President Thabo Mbeki, who's called for all sides to show patience. Lindsay Hilsum, Channel 4 News, Johannesburg.
And literally while she was reporting, Reuters reported out of Harare, Zimbabwean police say they've arrested 7 election officials for undercounting votes cast for President Robert Mugabe in the presidential